Good morning, guys. Armand from Cool Trading Tools here. How's everybody doing today? So we're gonna go over the pre-market analysis and watch list today. So yesterday we discussed. If you go back to the video, we were pretty much right on almost all the few sets we were looking at here. So it looks like QQQ has set yesterday the daily lower high against that. We were hoping it would run into there for an easier trade, but we also were prepared for the you know staying red and holding red on the day as that is the potential signal there that we're going to get the daily consolidation underway here. Um, so now with that kind of being definitive now, we have a couple things to be considering. We have the Fed meeting today for the interest rate decision coming out. Yeah, interest rate at 2 p.m. Central or Eastern today. So we got that going on. So that'll probably really be a huge factor in how things shape up here. Don't have a strong opinion about it. We'll just see how the price action reacts to it. So we're just going to be using the technicals here. So we hit the daily higher, lower high on QQQ. The next thing we're going to be looking at is how the consolidation shapes up. We had a pretty large bounce. We've been saying our base case is we probably range bound for, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me. A couple weeks or even a couple of months isn't too crazy to me in my mind. But short term, we're going to be looking for how far do we fade off of that, because that'll dictate when we can kind of get a little bit long on the next stock. So I'll be looking at here. We can probably mark out some of these hourly levels. We have this area that I marked out here. We could probably just turn that into a bit more of a range to watch to kind of maybe look for a bounce as we come down into this area. I think filling this gap is a likely scenario, and that's a good spot to kind of look for there. Besides that, it's going to be range bound. We don't have to watch it too much, so we can kind of let the market do what it's going to do, and we can focus on our list. I still think SpaceX kind of had its crack yesterday. Hopefully, it stays up here right now. I think the perfect setup on this would probably be an opening range breakdown or a green to red on the stock for continued fade. I think that's the most likely scenario for that. That's what I'm going to be looking for. The way I like to enter trades is we get the open, we get a little consolidation for the first 5-10 minutes and break lower. That's probably a partial entry for me. And then maybe we add under yesterday's low or on the green to red, depending on how things shape up there. But still going to be focusing on that. The range is great. I also think it's now showed the definitive signal that it's going to be trying to move lower. We'll keep an eye on today with the bearish mindset on that. SNDK, another one here. We talked about it yesterday. Pretty much, we were on a day 5 gap up. We were expecting the market to kind of not hold up in its situation, so it wasn't surprising that this came down. I think this might have a little bit of a pullback as well here, so we can be watching, like I said, the hourly chart here. We have an hourly pivot right here that we want to hold under. Look for the break of this kind of 36 area for a continued lower area, and then you can look for bounce areas on the EMAs or moving averages as you come up if you want to keep day trading, which I think it's still giving great range for a day trade as well. So next setup we're going to be looking at today is this Wi-Fi here. Not entirely sure what it's moving. Something to do with it looks like a loan facilitated for it to secure its funding. It's a smaller company, so that being that. Once again, though, we're watching it into this pivot right here. It's a little bit extended going there, so I would set an alert there around, let's just say, as we get towards $40 and see if we get there. Might not even happen today, so I'll give it for the week. The main reason we're looking to short that is because coming off this bounce here, when we run into it, we're gonna be running into it at 80% up in straight 4 or 5 days. Usually, when you come into a resistance that extended, the likely scenario is it hits and fades it. People look to be taking profits there. People like me look to short that given the extension. So we look for that once the alert hits, and we look for the clarifying price action on the intraday chart and an entry setup to get short into that as well. So um, those are kind of it for the day trades. I'm going to be focusing on if that alert hits. Otherwise, I'll be looking for a bounce on the market or SNXX if it can kind of get down there. And I'll be looking still for the main watches to just be trading this space back and forth given the range it's still giving. And pretty clean setup overall. It wasn't easy yesterday to fade exactly. Kind of thought a couple times right here. Eventually, end of the day, it kind of got the crack that we were expecting. So another thing, more. This is gonna be for more of the swing traders here. We're gonna be watching this. Hood, I think, is a long-term swing opportunity. Last year was like a big leader the last couple of years. Now it's had a 50% pullback. And if you look on the weekly chart, it formed its little base into the previous IPO highs here. And this is still going to have a great tailwind given the PDT rule changes now is going to be allowing for day traders and people with small accounts, 2,000. It's no longer 25,000 to be able to day trade. And, so I'm marking out Hood and Bull, Webull, which are two of the top retail traders, and they really facilitate towards smaller account traders. These, I think, have great opportunities for continuation on the longer term trend. So now that we've held this base area and we're starting to switch the daily trend back to the upside, I think we can look for pullbacks under that guise of the long term situation on them with the PDT rule. And given that it was a previous leader and it's pulled back now, we can kind of look for long term swing entries on this as well. So, nothing immediately to do today, but I'm marking out as like things I want to be watching, maybe back into this pullback into the 9 EMA, 20 EMA, and look for a spot to get long. You don't have to be so precise with these. These are swing trades, and there's something I think you kind of want to look to get into and maybe hold a little bit longer, given we had this, 6 month base here. And then Webull, not as hot as Hood. However, it's a recent IPO and it's now forming, a weekly trend change. So I think if we ever get over the 750 area, we can probably mark out, that's an area we can look to the weekly trend change continuation. Personally, I'm not the type to kind of wait for this break and enter in. I'm more of an anticipatory entry type person. So if we pull back here, I may look to get a partial position in here and then add on the break. So then that puts my average around $7 here on something like that. That's maybe how I'm more likely to play it. I just hate buying it at the top because then you have to have your stop so low to do it. So I'll probably anticipate it a little bit and then look for a situation where you can add into that, or you take the full entry on the anticipation entry. So those are two long-term swing setups. Given the charts look to be kind of confirming what we're doing as like maybe a longer-term trend continuation. The base here on the weekly chart on Hood, the weekly trend change, this could have a lot of room to run in the future here, So I think those are going to be some of the main swing trades we'll be watching. For the day, I think we'll be watching SpaceX continue. It's still giving great range, and we don't need to overcomplicate things. So awesome, guys. You guys have a good rest of the day and good trading day.